We must always keep in mind that being a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is a choice, and it's for a purpose. As long as a person continues to make the choice of remaining in the community, he must naturally abide by the rules of the community. Huzur said that during Bay'at, we pledge that we will act upon every good decision of the Khalifa and we also repent. Thus, on the one hand, every Ahmadi makes this declaration repeatedly, be it man, woman, youth, or child. But on the other hand, then there is also this objection that since there should be no compulsion in religion, then why is there this enforcement? Why are some restrictions carried out? Huzur explained that after joining Islam and after accepting Ahmadiyyat and true Islam, it cannot be an excuse that there is no compulsion in religion. This is a very erroneous thought. An ordinary worldly organization or government enforces their rules and regulations, and they do so strictly. They announce that if these are not followed, then organizations or clubs will expel people from their membership. Countries also, Huzur gave the example, they punish according to their laws, or a person who doesn't follow its laws leaves the country. Islam is a complete code of life, which encompasses and covers every aspect of life, and it has a greater right to enforce its laws. Huzur explained that it is the beauty of Islam that if someone says that he does not want to stay under the restrictions, then Islam says that you have the freedom to leave the boundaries of Islam. Or if you wish to stay within the fold of Islam, then in any case, the established discipline has to be adhered to. So this is the advice of Huzur on the matter, that there is no compulsion in religion, applies to a person always being free to leave Islam and to leave Jamaat Ahmadiyya anytime that he wants to without any compulsion. Now, the purpose of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is to establish Islamic values in the world. As members of the community, this is our individual responsibility as well. However, when an Ahmadi acts against the teachings of Islam, in such cases, Jamaat may take some disciplinary action. When such people face disciplinary action, they sometimes feel as though the community is forcing them to behave a certain way. However, this policy is no different from what we find in any other community. For example, a soccer club. They set membership requirements like a practice regimen, like uniform standards, and even behavior guidelines on and off the field. In fact, players are sometimes expelled from their team for behavioral indiscretions done off the field that has no effect on their skill on the field. So if a person is removed from a club for going against its rules, no one thinks that he's being forced to behave a certain way. Similarly, those who act against the teachings of Islam, sometimes they face disciplinary action within the Jamaat. This is a right that any community has. Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziallahu Anhu explained that for us too it is necessary that we have recourse to this method. When a man comes to us and takes bayat at our hand, surrendering himself to our influence and guidance, we automatically acquire the right to apply all lawful pressure to bring him up to the mark, if he showed laxity in his endeavors to conform to the aims and requirements of the movement. Huzur says that this right remains vested in us as long as he continues to claim he is a part of us, since his weaknesses and transgressions bring the movement into disrepute. For a man who did not approve of the application of such a pressure against him, the only course would be either to remove the need for it by working a change in himself, or to leave the movement. So this is the advice of Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziallahu Anhu. We sometimes forget that being a member of the community is for a very specific purpose, and it's a choice and a privilege. When we begin looking at the community as more of a social club than a religious organization, that is where we falter. This is why, if we choose to be members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we are required to establish the teachings of Islam in our lives as far as we can. If an Ahmadi publicly acts against the purposes of the community, then he must be reprimanded. Otherwise, the very purpose of the existence of the community is defeated. For example, criminal cases are settled according to U.S. law, but if a civil case arises between two Ahmadis, the U.S. government allows us to settle according to Islamic law. Now, if a person prefers some other civil court over the Islamic civil court established in the Jamaat, in practice, he publicly undermines the importance of the teachings of Islam and goes against the purpose of the community. How can such a person preach the establishment of the teachings of Islam in the world, but then refuse to apply those principles when the opportunity is given in his own life? Another example is that if we choose to have drinking and dancing in a function that we host, then again we publicly act against the teachings of Islam. Ahmadis are never reprimanded for disbelief. They are only reprimanded for hypocrisy. If a person doesn't believe in Islam or doesn't want to be a member of the Jamaat, then he's free to leave the community anytime that he wants to. There's absolutely no consequences. He can leave with respect and dignity. He's free to go whenever he wants to. However, if a person disbelieves while continuing to give false allegiance to the Khalifa because he's too spineless to be straightforward and leave, that is hypocrisy. If his hypocrisy becomes apparent, then such people are reprimanded for undermining the community from within. It is not appropriate for members of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community to continue maintaining social relationships with such people who are guilty of hypocrisy, who are double-faced. It is these against whom action is taken. Huzur Yadaullah said that those who are punished, people invite them to gatherings and functions, whereas they should not be invited at all. It is one thing to speak with them, but to have a social connection with them is another. Such people are not excommunicated, but it is necessary that there be an expression of disgust, otherwise they cannot realize their mistake. They are not only prevented from giving chanda, rather we should abstain from every type of social connection, so that they regret what they have done and repent and pray for forgiveness. Huzur Yadaullah said that those family members who have sittings with such people, or call them to their gatherings, or who sometimes bring them close and eat with them, and then they make excuses that they had no choice, or they sometimes make the excuse that such a person came at the demise of a family member so they ate together. Such people are also becoming like these wrongdoers. They have no respect for the Nizam-e-Jamaat. They have no respect for the decisions of the Khalifa of the time. Even if it is done once, and if they sit with such people who have been punished by not giving importance to the punishments from the Jamaat, which is given for the purpose of social pressure, it means that with their actions, they are giving the message that although there is a punishment, but it does not matter. They are giving the message that their normal relationship with them is still there. The exception is if such a person's wife, children, or parents, but their relationship should be for the purpose of making the person who has been punished understand. Since they are closely related, there is more pain in them. So they must explain with pain in their heart, and they must pray for them. Aside from this, Huzur explained that if a person keeps a relationship with a person who is under punishment from the Jamaat, then according to me, he does not feel any value of the Nizam-e-Jamaat. Office holders should be especially careful about this. This is the advice that Huzur gave. Also, we must remember that when someone faces disciplinary action from the community, his religious freedom is not impeded on. An Ahmadi who faces disciplinary action from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is still an Ahmadi, and no human can deprive them of their right to be an Ahmadi. They simply no longer are part of the system of the community. If that person repents, then he can request the Khalifa to be readmitted into the community. Ultimately, we must always remember that being a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is for a purpose, and Huzur helps us towards that purpose with his example, advice, and when necessary with punishment, but all are done out of love.